We talk a lot about leadership like it's this fixed skill set, vision, confidence, strategy. But the truth, most leaders were never actually taught how to lead. They were just good at their jobs one day and suddenly responsible for everyone else's. And here's the catch, listeners: being great at the work doesn't automatically mean you are ready to guide people through the work. Well, through my experiences, I learned that the hard way. When I found myself having to lead, not from strength, but from survival. That imagine becoming a CEO, a widow, a single mom, and a parent all in the same 24 hours. You don't learn leadership in moments like that, you become it painfully and imperfectly. Today, on this episode of the BizBlend podcast, we're talking with someone who knows that transformation inside out. Sheyna James isn't your typical leadership coach, listeners. She has lived it. Through unimaginable loss, she rebuilt her life and her leadership from the ground up, creating a framework that's redefining what it means to truly lead relationally, authentically, innovatively, and resiliently. So let's get into it. The leadership problem no one talks about. Shena, welcome to the show, and it's really, really an honor to have you here with us.
Thanks, Donna. It's great to be here.
Totally, totally. Shena, let's begin with the problem. And I so much personally connect and resonate with that because it is something that I have myself experienced. I have seen others, especially individual contributors who have been like top tier performers nationally in the company among all the teams, kind of abruptly getting into the leadership position and kind of becoming this, kind of headless chicken, what to do, how to figure everything out. Um, Most people, they get promoted because they're amazing at doing, not leading. So, what happens when someone suddenly finds themselves responsible for people, but they could be completely unequipped for it?
Well, that is the big problem, right?
Yep.
We have so many people who, as you said, they have done an amazing job individually. But one of my clients said this: the higher you go up in management,
Hmm.
the less it's about your skill to do the actual job, the more it's about your skill to lead the people to do the job.
Yeah.
And that is the challenge that, we didn't have classes when I was growing up in elementary school or high school on this is how you lead. We just took people who were, charismatic and who people were attracted to and said, "Hey, go lead this." And people were trying to figure out how to lead on their own. And so we've got a really broken system for developing leaders in that we think leadership is about charisma and it's about your individual contributions when really it's a skill that we have to start working on to develop or we're really going to
Right.
have a hard time.
Hmm. That actually makes sense. That actually makes sense. But I would also like to, kind of play a devil's advocate here. That let's say, Shina, I'm I may not be good at sales, but I'm responsible for leading a team of 100 people who are going to do the sales for the company. So if I do not know how effectively sales can be achieved or the target can be achieved, how can I make my team members achieve the same?
Well, it's interesting because the old school of thought is you have to be able to do the job and do it well that you're trying to get other people to do. And I don't
Mm.
think that's necessarily the case. I think you have to be able to inspire and lead people well to get other people to do the job, whether you know it or not. There is a book out by Dan Sullivan. It's called Who Not How, and it changed my strategy on leadership so deeply because I would often think when a problem or project came up, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get this done? Instead of saying, who do I need to get to do this? So, real leadership, if I don't know anything about sales and I've got a team of sales people, it's
Mm.
about learning what are their talents, what are their gifts, where are their strong suits, and matching what they do well to the tasks that we need to get done and inspiring them to operate in their skill set. Instead of sitting back and trying to force them to do things our way, really allowing them to blossom in the way in which they are best at what they do. And that's what leadership is about. It's not commanding you to do something. It's inspiring you and motivating you and connecting with you to do what you're already gifted at or helping you to become better at it so you can do it well.
That's very well said, Shina. Very well said. And I absolutely agree with that. Because as an individual contributor, you can be, so good with metrics and, doing everything individually. But I think when it comes to people, there are aspects which matter above the numbers and the data and everything.
Absolutely.
Super. Okay, now specifically when leaders are new and unsure, they often, hide it because it can be seen as this weakness or um rather, if I can frame it differently, vulnerability. It isn't exactly rewarded in business culture. How do you help leaders navigate this tension, between looking or pretending capable and actually learning?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I became the leader of our organization, it wasn't in the greatest of circumstance. So I just overnight my husband passed away and I became the CEO of our organization that he was leading. I became a widow. I had 2 children that were ages 2 and 5. I was too tired to care what other people thought. That's really what happened, Sana. I was like, "We just gotta get stuff done." And it that was actually a blessing and not a curse, right? Like, I stopped worrying about how people felt about me, and what ended up happening was I ended up learning how to operate in my authentic self. And
Mm,
I recognized that it's okay if everybody doesn't connect with every part of who I am authentically, as long as they know that we have a mission and that I care about them individually. I think having a connection where you care about a person who's on your team sort of gives you the emotional, um, asset that you need when maybe your authenticity doesn't click with them. So a lot of people are struggling with imposter syndrome because they haven't really established emotional assets with people or connections, or some people say you haven't deposited into the relational bank account. So
mm,
when you need a space of grace, you can't pull from it. So we keep trying to put a front on because we think if I put this image out, then people will accept my ideas. Well, guess what? They might not accept your idea anyway. If I put this front up, people might think I know what I'm talking about, even when I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about, and maybe they'll listen to me. Well, even if you know what you're talking about, sometimes people don't listen to you. So you have to kind of let go of sort of these images in your mind of what's going to make people either move the needle or accept you, and just learn to be authentically who you are. Because if you can be who you are, what I've discovered in this day and time is people want truth. People do not want the fake fluff. They want, if I can't do this, if I don't know how to do something as a leader, I will tell you. Y'all, this ain't my wheelhouse. This is something I need your help on. If it's something that I'm unsure of, I don't answer questions I don't know the answers to. I don't know why we keep faking it. Like, don't do it. Just say, I'm not sure. Let me go back. Let me research this. Let me find an answer and I'll come back to you. People respect that more. And
yeah,
when they respect that, they follow you more, right? I'm more apt to follow you if I trust you. And I can't trust you if you're not authentically who you are.
absolutely. Once again, I mean, first of all, Shana, oh my God, I don't know, but I think, in that particular situation, um, I think. the only focuses you have, it's kind of, the way it would kind of be a reaction that I have to make sure that the organization stays afloat, it doesn't break down. So I think it's a very difficult and very challenging place to be in, but I think there are a lot of lessons to learn from it. And secondly, I absolutely agree with you. As a leader, as a CEO, I may not have the answer to all the questions or solutions to all the problems, but I think that's exactly where people, your team members or board members or subject matter experts, they come for rescue. I may not know the answer, but I trust that you know it. So let's
Absolutely.
go ahead and let's figure that out.
Absolutely.
Interesting, interesting. Also, Shana, you, I mean, if you could go back to, I think I don't know whether it's a difficult question, but if you could go back to that first 24 hours, when you became a CEO, a single mom, a widow, and a pastor, it's a life quake. If you could go back to those first 24 hours, what would you tell yourself about what real leadership would require?
Well, I think the thing that you have to understand about my situation was I
Mm.
didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
I woke up that morning and I woke up to the sounds of giggling and laughter in my bed. And I looked over and my husband was playing with my 2-year old. And, they were like playing Eskimo kisses. And I just hear my son just laughing. And I remember my husband taking our kids to church and he was like, "You just rest," right? And he was the pastor. So he's like, "I'm gonna take them. You just rest." And I laid there and so I just kept thinking to myself, wow, what an amazing life this is. I just am so grateful. I have a really wonderful husband, 2 amazing children that were 2 and 5. And I just thought, wow, this is just amazing. I felt so much peace. I felt joy. And then I got to church. And after I came out of service, my husband said, I don't feel very well. I said, well, go in the back and take care of yourself, and I'll come check on you. And when I went in the back, I found him laying out, just completely unconscious on the ground. So we rushed and we called 911 and they came, they took him to the hospital. And when I arrived at the hospital, less than an hour after our service ended, the doctor said to me, he said, I'm sorry, Mrs. Hurd, but we've done all that we can do, but your husband's passed away. And I was just
Yeah.
gobsmacked. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, and that afternoon, actually, our board got together and they were like, "Hey, you've gotta carry this forward." And, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, "Do y'all know I just lost my husband?" I have 2 kids, 2 and 5, who I have to lead them through this experience and their grief, leading myself through my own grief, leading our organization, our business, and then leading our church through that grief. And so it was like this massive weight of trying to handle all of that. And if I remember that night, that one thing that came to me that I wish I would have grabbed onto and held onto it a little bit longer and really ingested it was that night when I said, "Yes, I'll do this." And I just thought it was going to be temporary, but it's now been 17 years later.
Wow.
But that night, I wish I would have held on to,
Mm,
"You're gonna make mistakes."
mm,
And I knew it and I sensed it, but I kept saying, "No, not me. I've got this. I'm gonna do the best that I can. I'm gonna give it everything I got." And I thought that effort was what's gonna make it work out. And I realized I can give it my best effort and I'm still gonna make mistakes. I'm not perfect. No leader is perfect. And I think
mm,
we struggle because we're afraid to fail in our leadership. We're afraid to be innovative and try things in our leadership. We're afraid because we think that failure is going to happen. And I just look back and I realize there was no failure. I never failed. I made a lot of mistakes, but I didn't fail. What I did was I learned how to be better, how to do it better, how to say it better. I lost people on my team because of my direct nature and style, but then I learned how to be a better communicator because of that. So I wish I would have held on to you're going to make mistakes. But the second part of that is that's okay. Just learn from it.
I think I think this that's the kind of lived truth that cannot be faked. And I think the most obvious part is that a leader is also human. And I don't know about the skeptics, who would say that no, you got to have to be very perfect and strong-willed and aggressive. But I think we are redefining leadership here. I mean, we have to also learn from our mistakes as a leader. And I think it reshapes what we think, power looks like. So thank you for very openly sharing those moments, Shana.
Yes.
God. It is. It is. Uh, um, mm, and you talk a lot about emotional intelligence being the missing piece in leadership. Lot of skepticism around that, I mean, I still get to hear that these are all soft skills. They don't have any place, whether it's faith or it's having that spirituality or intuition or that human element to leadership. It's all soft skills. It can sound fluffy to results driven people. How do you make it tangible for leaders who care about performance and profit?
Well, it's real interesting because my background, my undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering. So it wasn't my first nature. I am results driven. I am process oriented. I am, if it don't work, then let's not do it. Let's change the systems. Let's do this. And so when I got into leadership, not only was I dealing with my own personal hurt and things like that, but I was dealing with my style is that way. It's systems, it's performance, it's numbers. And what I learned was everybody is not like me. Everybody doesn't think that way. As a matter of fact, I became a disc behavioral consultant because I began to study and learn that there are four major personality types, and mine was the one that was least common, meaning about only 3% of people had my personality type. And I just began to discover that 69% of people have the personality type where those feelings, those connections, those relationships are important to them, and they perform better because of the connections. And so what I began to discover is if I want to get people to run through a wall with me or for me, I better connect with them. I better show up and be present when they speak. I better make sure that they feel valued and supported because then I will get to results. So, if you're a results oriented person and a systems oriented person, the thing that you have not factored in is that the system that you need to get results is people. And the catch with the system of people is it's not one input gives you one output. It might be multiple types of input gives you the output you're looking for. And if you think about it from those terms, I've coached tons of engineers all over the world. And many of the things that I've discovered when I've coached them is that once we start to take this mindset off of making you think that emotional intelligence is some ethereal thing that, you just can't grasp, and we put it into terms of how you can grasp it, things like just helping people feel heard by looking them in their eye, by saying, I hear you, by taking a moment to just ask questions instead of just jumping into solutions, by checking on people. Those are simple systems you can do if you're a process oriented person that can produce the results of getting that person to be more on your side or working towards the goal that you want them to. Once you dial back, the science and the math side of results, and you factor in that people are a part of the equation to the results, I think it really transforms how people think about emotional intelligence. It's not some far out, woo-saw feeling thing. It really is if you treat people well, if you listen to people, if you hear them, if you learn to communicate, if you learn to connect, if you show up and you're present, it makes a difference in how people perform.
Exactly. That's so very well put. And I think it's funny that we spend millions training leaders to communicate better, but I think there's still a huge gap in terms of how they're not given their exposure to feel better. And then once again, we wonder why burnout or disengagement is heavy.
Mhm.
And it's not only for the leader but also the team members. Now,
Mhm.
there's an exchange of ideas, there's exchange of energy. It's those dynamics, which are working. So I think if we look at it logically or rationally also, I think if there's a blockage in between or right at the source, then there's never going to be that flow.
That's right. You're absolutely right. We 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 cut off people quickly if they're
Mm,
not giving us the results we want. If we feel a friction instead of working through that friction. I actually, heard someone, talk about Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs tells a story about a rock tumbler and how, basically they throw these rocks and some sand and some kind of solution in, and it starts tumbling it, and they come back the next day, and they recognize that, "Oh my gosh, the rocks are just so polished and beautiful." And he
mm,
goes, "What he learned is that what made those rocks so polished and beautiful was the friction." And a lot of times in our teams and on our culture of work, we don't like friction. We avoid friction so much, but we don't understand that the friction of the ideas, the friction of how we communicate, the friction of, how we approach the task is all good in making it a much stronger and a much better product on the outside. So I teach, the class that is most requested from me is navigating workplace conflict. I mean,
mm,
between that and communications, the 2 biggest
yeah,
classes. And I have to get people over this mindset that it's okay to have friction. It's okay to have conflict. That conflict isn't bad. It can be good if you know how to navigate and walk through it better. So I totally agree with you. We have to not be afraid of sort of butting up against the hard things and dealing with the hard people at the source because it makes it difficult down the line if we don't deal with the friction, right? We can't become better without the friction.
exactly. Exactly. Ah, superb. And before we conclude, Shena, if you could redesign the way organizations promote and prepare leaders, I'm personally very, very interested to know the answer from you. But if you could redesign the way all this promotion and the preparation for leaders work, what would you change first?
I I would start with developing leaders when you see potential before they become a leader. Um, in other words, don't wait till you promote someone to have a team of people to say, it's time for me to start developing you. I really hope that people will start identifying people who are maybe, and I would say leadership skills are a bad term to say to identify because some people have it naturally, some people develop it, but maybe
Mm,
people that you see are really, really great at what they do, or maybe they have
mm,
influence, or maybe, they have some aspect that would help your team move forward. Instead of waiting and going, "Oh, okay, we've got a new job opening for a manager and you're a perfect fit." How about we start training them and educating them on the skills? And the skills that I think they need are my RARE framework, which is a proprietary framework where we talk about how leaders need to be relational. So we need to teach relational skills. We need to teach them it's okay to be authentic, which is the A. We need to show them tools to help them be innovative so that they can be problem solvers. And then we need to teach them to be resilient so that when crisis or situations come, they know how to handle it. If we can train people in those areas before they become leaders, then it will excel their groups, their teams, their organizations when they actually do become managers and leaders.
Mm. And I think especially the relational one is so, so essential because other day I was having another episode and conversation on emotional intelligence. Um, Something that I got to know is it's not only just the emotional intelligence or EQ, it's also about the relational intelligence. That it's not
Mhm.
that, I am empathizing with you, but at the same time, if I feel or I believe that this is something to correct or there's some kind of a difficult conversation to be done, or maybe it's a discussion on accountability,
Yeah.
ownership, I think I will be very frank because I do not want to sugarcoat or, fluff it. What is A, I will keep it A. What is B, I will keep it B.
Yeah.
Go here and there and beat around the bush.
Yeah, that's what, people who don't mind confrontation do, but you have a large group of people who hate confrontation, so that just
Mm.
freaks them out, and that's what I teach people. I teach people how to know what is going to land with the person you're talking to. It's not necessarily about your style, it's about what style is gonna get us to the result, and it might be different for different people. If just a simple
Mhm.
thing, and I know we are coming to the end of this episode, if there's any one simple little takeaway, there are certain words that trigger people, and you don't even think that triggers them. Like, "We need to talk." You know, if you're a direct person, "We need to talk" feels great. Like, "Let's go." But if you're a person who hates conflict, you are stressing. Yeah. You know, it's, like, really hard. And so even just learning how to reframe those words, how to use something different so that people will approach the conversation differently and they'll be more open to the things that you have to share.
Absolutely. That's a very key point you made. Very key point. Superb. So, Shayna, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, share their thoughts after this conversation, or explore more about the rare leadership framework, your work, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can reach me, at rare, RAIR, leader.com. That's rareleader.com, or my name, Shayna James Consulting.com. Either way, you can find out more. And for your guest, you know, I want to help them with their leadership. So I actually have a free toolkit for leaders that they can get if they go to either of those sites as well, just to help them with some simple tools to lead better.
Super, super. Listeners, you can find all these details in the show notes, which will be there attached along with this episode on whichever platform you listen to your podcast to. And I think, um, first of all, I would love to say that Shayna's story it reminds us that leadership doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just has to be real. And maybe that's the point, listeners. Like great leaders, they aren't born or built overnight. They are shaped, tested, and softened until what's left is someone who can truly, truly lead from the inside out. So, Sheena, thank you so, so much for very candidly, very, very beautifully putting up your thoughts, your journey, and your insights.
Well, thank you, Sana, for having me.
Absolutely. And to all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning into BizBlend. If you are listening and questioning whether you are ready to lead or not, maybe you already are. You just haven't realized it yet. Until then, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.